Hello, hello. Good afternoon. It's nice to see you one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so what are we going to do today? We are going to continue talking about modal verbs. So last time we were talking about modal verbs, and we said modal verbs are auxiliary verbs, right? So they support, they improve, they give asteroids to the situations, to the sentences, to the activities we are talking about in present, in past, in future, and so on. And these modal verbs are going to replace the auxiliary verb. So we also mentioned that modal verbs can be used to talk about possibility, obligation, invitation, probability, suggestion, and so on. And we also said last time that because of the learning guide and the objective of the evidence, that's about a forum, mis próximas vacaciones, and according to this forum, we're going to reply these questions. When would you request your vacation for work? How many days would you have for vacation? Where could you go on vacation? And so on. This is why we studied modal verbs and we studied with the verb good. So the verb good is used with another verb because by itself is not going to have any kind of meaning. It's going to mean like ría, ríamos, rían, right? Querría, gustaría, viviríamos, and so on, right? Because it's used for an hypothetical situation and to express desire and wish, especially this part, expressing desire and wishes. This is specifically important or used in our to develop this evidence about the form. So we talked about good. We also talked about the verbs can and could, and we said that can and could can be used to express possibility and ability, but can is for present and could is for past. Additionally, we also mentioned that this can be related in future tenses. I mean, to talk about a hypothetical future. And we said that the difference between can and could when we are predicting the future, making a hypothetical future, a conditional future, is that can is more probable, is more likely to happen than could. So this is the difference between can and could. So now we're going to focus in more modal verbs, more precisely in modals for permission, requests, offers, and invitations. So in this case, we're going to use four modal verbs. Two that we already know, three in fact, that we have already met in the previous session, but there is one more new, another modal verb. So can, could, we have already studied can and could, and we have already studied good. So the new verb is may. So what's the difference between all of these verbs? Because all these verbs are used to talk about permission, to ask for a permission, to request something, to offer something, and to ask for an invitation or to invite somebody to do something. So what's the difference between these four modal verbs? This is a coherent question, right? Well, when we want to be very informal, very relaxed, when we are with our friends, relatives or of cousins, for example, somebody who we speak to in an informal way, especially with friends in a very friendly environment, we are going to use can to ask for a permission, request, offer, or invitation. For example, and I'm going to mention this example very often. So one of these examples very often. For example, hi neighbor, how can I help you? You are you are arriving to a store, you are buying something, and the seller is somebody you know from I don't know from 1994. So you have known him or her all your life. So that's why the seller from the store or the supermarket or whatever knows you since you were a child. Therefore, that's why he or she is very informal. So that's why he says or she says, "How can I help you?" right? Because he or she knows you since 1994. Let's suppose that. Another example: can I? You're in your friend's house, your best friend's house, and it's very hot in there. So you ask him, "Can I open the window?" Of course, you are going to open the window without us knowing if he's going to tell you yes or no. But just for cordiality, you ask, "Can I open the window?" You are already opening the window, but just ask for the formality, just that. So he or she can ask you, "Yes, you can," or "No, you cannot." Let's suppose that. So can is very informal. What about could? So, two examples. Do you think you could do me a favor? Uh, in this case, the verb could is a little more neutral or a little more polite. So, this is kind of the difference. Or, for example, you are with your partners from your job, from the place you are working at, right? From the business, from the factory, or whatever, wherever you are working, and you ask, "Could I open the window?" Right? You're not very informal, but you're not completely formal. It's a polite question. And you know these friends, these guys who work with you, but you don't have this, um, you're not so close to them. I mean, you know them, but they are not your best friends. You don't go for you don't invite them to a party, for example, or you don't go with them to you don't invite them to your son's birthday. Let's suppose that, right? So could is a little more neutral. In this case, they can answer you. They are never going to answer you with could. So they are going to answer you with may. And if you want to be incredibly formal, super, hyper, mega formal, you're going to ask with may. In these cases, you're going to use may in situations where, for example, you are in the court, right? You are with the dean of the university, you are with the owner of the company, right? When you have to be incredibly formal, when you are asking for when you're on a pitch for to raise some money because you are creating your own business. So in those cases, you are going to use may, like the on May from Spider-Man, right? The same pronunciation. So may I ask you a question, Your Honor? Right? May is very formal, incredibly formal. In this case, for these kind of situations, may is not going to be very common because English is a little informal, a little between neutral and informal. So when you want to be incredibly formal, it's for very specific situations, and this is not very common, in fact. So, but it exists. Or in this case, may I open the window? And once again, you're with your teacher, and this teacher is very strict, right? They are a little narrow-minded. It's very serious, and you feel a lot of respect for him or her. So that's why you are very formal. May I open the window? Maybe she or he is going to say, yes, you may. Or maybe he's going to say, no, you may not, for example, right? So this is the difference between can, could, and may. Informal, neutral, and very formal. Super formal, in fact. However, this is one way to check, to mention the difference between these three modal verbs. But we can also mention something else. If we want to sound a little more persuasive, right, we could ask with the word not, mentioning couldn't or can't. Once again, can't is for a more informal situation, and couldn't for a more open, a more neutral, a polite situation. For example, can we please listen to some music con picada de ojo? right? Can we listen to some music, please? It's better to study with some music, right? Or couldn't we stay here a little more, right? Couldn't is a little more formal, right? But in both cases, we are being very persuasive. Another example: can't I open the window? Can you open the window? Right? Can't. So can you please do it? In this case, once again, we are being very informal. It's still persuasive. And the other option, a little more polite but still persuasive. Couldn't you open the window, please? Couldn't I open the window? Right? Like, do you mind? Right? But it's very persuasive, right? With a smile and so on, of course. And finally, if we want to ask for permission, we are offering something, we are inviting someone to do something, or we are requesting something, we could use good, right? Remember that good means ría. ¿Te gustaría? ¿Querrías? ¿Vendríamos? ¿Visitarías? And so on. For example, could you like soda? Could you like that? This is an indirect question, a request, but it's very polite. Could you like a soda? Not really. I would prefer a beer, for example, right? Or an indirect question again, in terms of request or in terms of a polite request. Could you please open the window? Would you mind opening the window, for example? So this is another way to ask for an indirect question in order to ask for a permission to offer something, to invite somebody to do something, or to request something for you. So this is the difference between these four verbs, can, could, may, and good, to ask for permission. Once again, if we are very informal, we use can. If we are neutral, polite, we use could. If we are very informal, we use may. If we want to be persuasive, we can use can and could, can't and couldn't. Can't, more informal, couldn't, more polite. And if we want to ask for an indirect question, an indirect request, and this is a little polite, a polite neutral, we are going to ask with the word good. Would you mind to do something? Could you please do something? Right? So this is the idea of these verbs. This is how these verbs for permission, request, offers, and invitation works. Invitations work, sorry. And I'm pretty sure they can be useful for the forum, to create the forum, to develop the forum. Additionally, we also have modal verbs to ask for advice or give advice, of course. And these verbs, these modal verbs, are going to be used, for example, when you are asking for advice to the company, to the travel agency, to ask when you are asking what to do in a specific place. For example, in fact, the learning guide says, should you take advice from the travel agency? Yes, no. Should you take your passport with you? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? This is an advice. You should carry, I don't know, between $5,000 and $20,000. No less, because it's not going to be enough for you. No more, because you're going to be you're going to be suspicious for doing some kind of non-legal things, for example. Let's suppose. Okay, so these models for advice are should, had better, ought to, and could. And with its negative forms, of course, too. Shouldn't, had better not, and ought not to, and couldn't. You already know couldn't. So these modal verbs express what we think is a good idea or a bad idea. That's why it's an advice, right? That's why we use them as an advice. And the kind of advice we give, or the kind of advice we receive, might be strong or mild. might be important or quick, let's suppose that, right? So the stronger the advice is, the more important it is, the more necessary it is. We're going to use have better. And as long as we reduce the importance of this advice, we're going to use ought to, should, and could. This is the difference between these four verbs. It's like a scale, right? The more important to the less important, the stronger to the weaker. This is kind of a scale with had better and on the top and could with on the bottom, or vice versa if you prefer it. So it's kind of this. When we are mentioning a suggestion, we could use could and could. If it's an advice, it could be should or ought to. And if it's a warning, just be careful with doing something, we need to mention had better. Or the objective is to better use had better. For example, with your friend, this is a suggestion. Maybe your friend is not going to listen to you, so who cares, right? So he's going to say, I'm just listening to you, but I'm not going to follow your advice. For example, you tell him you could wear pink shoes, and he is going to say, okay, I'll take the advice, but I'm not going to do it, right? So this is a suggestion that he maybe is not going to take into account. With your daughter, for example, you could say, you should take your umbrella. It looks like raining. So this is a kind of less mild, a little more important, right? Out to an advice to your husband or wife or couple. You ought to limit the amount of salt in your diet, because if you don't do it, maybe something's not so good is going to happen to you. And had better, for example, with your son, and you tell him or her, in this case him because it's his son, you had better clean your room if you want to go out, right? If you do this, you'll get this reward. If you don't do this, you will get a punishment, let's suppose. So this is in general how these verbs work. But let's see them with a little more details, right? Could is normally used to give a mild advice or a mild suggestion to what? To solve a problem, any kind of problem, right? So, for example, I say I hate my old jeans, and you tell me, well, you could buy a new pair. So this is a suggestion, but it's not so important. It's mild. It's not a situation of life or death, right? So this is good. What about should, for example? In this case, we are going to use should to express what would be the most correct or convenient thing to do. I mean, in my opinion, this is something subjective. This is something according to this is an advice taking into account the experience, points of view. So this is something personal that I'm going to tell you to do because I think this is the best way to manage this situation. According to my opinion, according to my point of view, but nothing else. For example, you should eat healthy food. Why? I don't know, because everybody says that. But do you have experience, knowledge, um, data, reasons to know why? No, it's just an opinion. It's my point of view. So if it's correct or not correct, if it's coherent or no, I don't know because I'm talking from my point of view. Maybe I know a lot. That's good. Maybe no. And that's okay too. So we don't know. Another opinion, your young children shouldn't watch violent TV shows because according to what I think, and I have no data to back this information, but it's just an opinion, What I think is that if young children, young kids, watch violent TV shows, they are going to be violent at the same time. An opinion. Do you have data? Is that information based in science? No, it's just an opinion. That's why we use should. Additionally, should, and this is not related to the evidence, but it's important to mention it, is also to regret to talk about things we regret. I mean, something that happened in the past, maybe made for us, maybe made for somebody else, but because it's something that happened in the past, cannot be changed because we cannot go back to the past. We don't have the time machine. So sorry. And the structure for this situation is should have and the past participle of the verb. In this case, for example, you should have studied more often because you lost the test, right? So you cannot do anything else now. So the test has already finished and you cannot present it again. So I'm sorry. We feel regret, pity, sorry, for something that cannot be changed. So this is the idea of this should, with should have. Let's go with the third one, ought to. Ought to is more formal than should, and we use it when we want to express an objective point of view, an objective truth. So should is according to my point of view, according to my idea, my vision of how world works. This is very subjective. How to is more objective, is based on not on opinions but in data, in experience, in information. So this is more coherent, it's more accurate. So in this case, we are using how to express what is necessary to do and cannot be avoided. In this case, we use how to. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, in this case, we are going to use how to talk about laws, duties, and regulations, something that cannot be avoided. Okay, so this is more formal. And here are some examples. So he ought to behave a lot better. This is the norm at home, because if you don't behave something's wrong is going to happen. Maybe it's not going to be the kid is not going to be an example for the society. It's not going to be supportive or so on, right? Or with your husband, with your wife, you ought not to spend so much money because this money could be used to buy a new house, to invest in the business, to pay debts, right? So this is something that cannot be avoided, and in this case, we are focusing in an objective point of view, not in my personal opinion. And this is why we use ought. And finally, had better, we use had better, and this is the strongest way to suggest something. We use had better to give advice or to give recommendation when we believe that if you act in a different way, in a contrary way, something's wrong, something negative is going to happen to you. So it's like a warning. If you do this, something bad is going to happen to you. If you don't do that, something negative is going to happen to you. So you have to follow the rules. For example, you had better slow down. You are driving too fast. And if you keep driving fast, maybe even with the rain, we can crash and we may die. So if we don't do that, something's bad. If we continue doing that, something terrible, something bad may happen. So this is the idea of using had better. It's a recommendation that if we don't, if that we believe that if it's not, if we don't follow the rules, something bad is going to happen to us, to the person who is performing the action, or to somebody else. Another example, something that's very common in stores. You'd better not touch that. You tell this to your son, to your daughter. You better not touch that. Why? Because if you touch it and you break it, we have to pay it, and we don't want to, right? Because this is something negative. So this is the idea of had better. Additionally, something very common, especially in spoken language, not in terms of writing language, but especially used in spoken language. Had better can be also reduced, contracted like better, 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 like I better, you'd better, he'd better, she'd better, and so on. And because the pronunciation is a little fast, this d sometimes gets lost. Therefore, sometimes it's very common to mention just better. That's it. So this is the idea of this for modal verbs for advice. So I'm going to do a quick recap just in case, just to remember how they work. So model for advice, these model for advice are, as the name mentions it, are used to express the idea that something is good to be done or not so good to be done. Some is a good idea to perform this action, or maybe it's not a good idea to perform this action. So to mention this, to give you an advice on what to do in a specific situation, we're going to use should, had better, ought to, and could, and their negative ways, of course, to mention that something should be done or not. So if the advice is strong, if the advice is very important to take into account, we are going to use had better. And the milder we get, we are going to use ought to, should, and could. And being could, the base of the pyramid, being could as a weak advice, a weak suggestion, something that if you take into account, it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't do this action that, as I mentioned to you. So once again, for example, a suggestion could be more kind of a suggestion. For example, to your friend, you tell him you could wear pink shoes, and if you do it, great. If you don't do it, okay, because it's not going to be the end of the world. An advice could be something between an advice and a suggestion. Could be the word should. So you should take an umbrella, right? So this is better for you. In my opinion, you should do it because according to my point of view, because this is very subjective, it might rain and it might not be good for you. Something between an advice and a warning might be out too. So this is very objective. We have data, we have information when we use out to. So you have to limit the amount of salt in your diet because according to the data, according to those who know about nutrition, when you eat a lot of salty food or sweet food, you are going to have problems with your body. Let's suppose that, right? Because according to the articles, according to science, according to doctors, this is what happens. So you have an objective point of view. Should is subjective, ought to is objective. And had better is used to mention a warning, something that must be done. Because if we don't follow the rules, we don't follow the pattern, we don't do what is told to do, we are going to suffer the consequence, and the consequence is not going to be positive. Some is going to be negative. So Example of could, once again, is a mild advice. For example, I sent my resume, my curriculum vitae, if you prefer, for a job a few weeks ago, but they haven't had any response. And I told you, okay, you could call the company. If you do it, maybe they will answer you. If you don't do it, maybe you don't. They definitely are not going to answer to you. So nothing is going to happen if you do it or if you don't do it. It's just a job. You're going to get another job in another place, for example, right? Good. Should, once again, is very subjective point of view, my opinion. You should eat healthy food. Why? I don't know. Just because. Because I don't have the information. I have just heard that it's important for you. That's it. How to is more formal and it's more objective. We have data, we have information. So you ought not to spend much money because if you continue spending 300,000 pesos a month in things that are not necessary, we are not going to be able to complete the month without having debts because we have this for experience and we are managing numbers. And if we have debts, debts have to be paid in the future, and that's going to mean that we are not going to have vacations, we are not going to have we're not going to be a good Christmas, and so on. So we have the experience, we have data, we have information, because numbers with debts must be paid, and numbers are and debts are mentioned with numbers. So it's not my point of view. It's those are facts. And we finished with had better, and we said had better is used to give an advice, taking into account that if this advice is not taking into account, something bad is going to happen to us. Or maybe to the person we are talking to, of course, maybe not to us. So you'd better study tonight, because if you don't study tonight, tomorrow you are going to fail the test. So this is the idea of this had better. So in order to better understand, I have a chat here. You already have this in Sayuna, so I'm going to share with you the link in Sayuna. So I'm going to open it now. You are already in Sayuna, right? And here in Sayuna, we are in week number 3, I guess. Let me see. What's the name of this level? It's 639, I guess. Yeah. So you are in Sayuna, you open the course, and when you go to the course and open sesiones en línea, grabación y sesiones en línea, in session number 3, yeah, session number 4, you're going to have the document in here in PDF. So you have the summary already in Sayuna, and you also have the document for you to enroll to the next level. I mean, to level 6 and level 4, 3, 2, 1, just in case you know somebody who wants to do these courses with us. So the information is already in Sayuna, darling. Okay? What's missing? What am I missing? Oh, yes, the games. So let's go with the games. Pleasure. Or if you prefer, type me via email. So my email is type me via email and ask me to share with you the same document. So I will send it to you, send you back the same document. Doesn't matter. So, but you have to type me, because if you don't do it, I will forget it. I will not do it. ¿Vale? Okay, let me see. Wait, where are we? Give me a sec. Oh yeah, the last four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's go with this one. Let's go with a quizzes, then Kahoot, and we will finish with 2 exercises you are going to complete at home, not with me, but at home. Okay. Good. Okay, let's go. Break a leg as always. Okay, that was fast. Let's see, the accuracy. 100% of accuracy, perfect. So we don't need to, I don't need to give you feedback because this has already been understood. So let's go with a Kahoot, and I'm going to share with you 2 more games. Where is the, yes, here it is. And I'm going to give you 2 games for you to complete at home so you can integrate this knowledge. ¿Vale? Where is the game I want to use? There you are. 3 minutes, perfect, more than enough. Okay, let's go with this game. Okay, let's go. You already know how this works, so break a leg. Remember, pick up all the diamonds, nothing else, just the diamonds. Okay, 4 seconds. And time up. Okay, so you're the only one participating here, so I already know you're the leader in the game. So let's go with the other 2 exercises. The other 2 exercises for you to complete at home are this. First one, oh, what happened? Yeah, the first one is for you to complete the information according to the context. In this case, I have a and then let's suppose it's today. It's obviously not correct. And then you will have to choose the advice that corresponds according to the context.
You should take some medicine.
So you have a headache, therefore you should take medicine, you should take some medicine, you should lie down. So this is what you have to do in terms of this exercise. This is for you to be completed at home, not with me. And the other exercise for you to do it is this. In this case, you're going to practice should, shouldn't, had better, had not better, and ought to. ¿Vale? So in this case, you have to complete the questions according to type the answer according to the context. In question number 2, you have to relate the one on the left to the one on the right. So you have a context here and you have a solution on the right. In part number 2, part B, you have to type should or shouldn't, have better or better, shouldn't or ought to, depending on the context. And the part 4, this part here, is to check why are these used. So should, have better, and ought to are used to give advice or used to give information. So you have to type information, write that. Or if they are not used to give information and they are used to give advice, then you have to type advice. This is pretty coherent, right? The same with this. The speaker wants to say that there are negative consequences or there are positive consequences. I don't know, you have to choose, and depending on the context, you have to type positive or negative. So this is pretty easy. It takes some time to be finished, but it's going to be pretty easy. And I forgot to mention something. Once you finished, you click here in finish, check my answers, and you're going to have a score between 0 and 10, 0 and 10. So the idea is for you to get at least a 9 over 10, at least. Okay? So I suggest you to do it, to complete it at home. And that's it. That's everything about today's lesson. So if you have questions, all questions are once again welcomed. And if there are no questions, by the way, Sayuna is already working, so you can present all your activities through there and check the information in the platform, just in case, ¿vale? Okay, I guess there are no questions. Then I'm going to stop the recording.